Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you my January reading wrap-up. January was quite a hectic month for me because of the moving and some work-related stuff. Despite that, I managed reading a total of 15 books. I'm not able to believe that I was able to finish 15 books because of these 15 books, one is a very huge one. I can even consider it like 3 to 4 normal sized books because it took so long for me to read. I took almost over 2 weeks in order to finish that single book itself while parallelly reading the other stuff. So because of the moving, I was not able to sit down and read for most of the time. Hence, I was able to finish only 6 physical books. But in terms of audiobooks, it was a great month for me because I finished a total of 7 audiobooks and 2 manga. I read the manga from the Manga Plus app, which is available on the Play Store. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. Starting with the physical books, the first one which I finished is a YA contemporary book and it is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I've read only one other book by the author 2 to 3 years back and it is The Hate You Give, which is the author's first book, and I should say that is one of the most popular books that I read during that time, and it is also totally just for being popular. Now this book was written by the author after that one, set up in the same place where the first book takes place. Here we follow our main character Bree, who's a 16-year-old girl and she's in the last 2 years of her high school. But what has happened before she has gotten into high school is that her father, who was a rapper, was killed in his community because of some things that happened, and because of this her family is put into a and her mother is also going through some addiction problems which she recovers from. Until when she is recovered, Bree and her brother are taken care of by their grandparents, and after a few years both of the children get to be with their mother. While they are with their mother only, all these financial problems come across and Bree is trying to understand the position where they are right now in life. At the same time, she's trying to understand her mother better because she has been through a lot, and without understanding what she has been through, it's not possible for her to accept her mother as the person that she is. On top of all of this, Bree has this huge dream in order to become a rapper. She does not just have the dream to become a rapper, but also she is super talented in it. The writing of the author in this one and the description of each and every character was just mind-blowing for me, and I loved it from the first page to the last. Actually, while the book ended, I just wanted more of it because it was that good to read. I have not read the latest release of the author alone, which is Concrete Rose, which is kind of a backstory to a character from The Hate You Give, so I'm planning to read that book really soon. But this one was a great read for me and I rated it 4.5 stars. Next one is a non-fiction book and it is Adiyogi, The Source of Yoga by Sadhguru and Arundati Subramaniam. I should say that this was a very knowledgeable read for me because it had all the stories of Lord Shiva that I knew from my childhood days, but the way in which the authors delivered those stories from a yogic point of view was really fascinating for me, especially when it comes to Sadhguru's writing. Just from the way he explains some concepts to you and some stories to you, it is very evident that he is so much invested in this subject, and the depth and width of knowledge that he has in this particular subject of yoga is really vibrant for us as a reader. I have a dedicated review of this one coming up really soon on the channel. It is already filmed, edited and uploaded. I've just not published it yet because of some scheduling things. There are some other videos which are to come out before that video. So if you're interested in knowing a lot more about this book, which is Adiyogi, please look out for that video because I have talked in depth about my opinions about this book and what I got out of it in that video. Having said that, I expected a lot of Sadhguru's writing in this book because it is nearly 200 pages long, but of the 200 pages, only 120 to 150 pages are narrated by Sadhguru and the rest of the book is written by Arundati Subramaniam, who's kind of a follower of Sadhguru. I enjoyed the portion of the book that was written by Sadhguru more than the portion that was written by Arundati Subramaniam, but it was also really good. Though it did not meet all the expectations that I had in my mind, I should say that the authors delivered a beautiful piece of work in this book and I liked it very much, so I rated it 4 stars. The next one is a literary fiction book and it is The First Phone Call from Heaven by Mitch Albom. This is the first fiction book that I've read from this author because I have read 2 to 3 other non-fiction books by him before as audiobooks as well as physical books, and I should say I have enjoyed all those 3 much more compared to this one. It was a nice attempt by the author, but I don't think the execution was done really well because it is a very short book and there's one problem alone which I kept on facing with this book. It is that for such a short book, the amount of characters that the author has tried to fit in there seemed to be so much more than necessary. Here we basically follow the small town named Coldwater, and the special thing about this town is that there are people who are getting phone calls from the people who are dead in their lives and they are the loved ones from their past life. Just in order to make it even more understandable, I'm just going to give you an example. There is this one character inside the story who gets a call from her dead sister after a few years from when she is dead. And during the same time itself, there are many other people who also get phone calls from different people who are dead in their lives. And because of this, the town becomes very famous, and the way in which the media devours on this town makes it a marketplace for them. At the same time, how there are so many companies who use the supposed wonder that is happening in Coldwater as a marketing tool for themselves and selling their products is the basic plot of this book. It is also kind of a mystery because there are some things which are revealed towards the ending of the book, but as a whole, I think that if the author had just removed some characters from the story and just kept it a bit more straightforward, I think it could have worked out far better for me. Just in order to provide a proper element of surprise, I think the author just added in a lot of more characters than necessary. Apart from that, it was an okay kind of read for me, so I rated it 3 stars. The next one is one of my all-time favorite self-help books, and it is How to Be a BAWSE by Lilly Singh. I have made a dedicated summary video for this one in Tamil as well as English that is coming up pretty soon in the channel. The reason why I did it in both Tamil as well as English is because I know that this book has immensely impacted me and made me a better person in multiple ways, because it is very hugely positive in its way of deliverance by the author. And there have also been so many of my Tamil viewers who have been asking me to make Tamil videos more in the future. And I did my Ponniyin Selvan playlist last year in Tamil as well as English, and I had a great response for both of the languages in that particular playlist. From that I can understand that my Tamil viewers want to watch a lot more of my videos in Tamil as well. So I am planning to make at least summary videos of self-help books in both Tamil as well as English, because I want to make sure that everyone who's watching my channel has something to watch whenever I post a video. Hence the summary video for this one will be released in Tamil as well as English on the same day. I have talked about this book so many times in the channel already, so I don't want to repeat myself. I wanted to read this in January specifically because I was feeling a bit burnt out for the past 3 to 4 months and I wanted some kind of boost for me. After reading this, I can say that I'm like super boosted and I can see myself delivering a lot more quality content in the future. So one of the main reasons behind my content in the future is definitely going to be this book. So just go forward and read it. I know that it's a bit expensive, but trust me, it is a book which is totally worth the hype and the amount of money that you're going to spend on it. So obviously I rated it 5 stars. The next one is the huge book which I talked about in the beginning of the book, because of which I was not able to read a lot more shorter books, but I'm very glad that I read this one because it is one of my anticipated releases from 2021 and finally I managed reading it only in the beginning of 2023, and it is Empire of the Vampire by Kristoff, which is an adult grimdark fantasy book and it's the first book in a series. Now in this book we basically follow our main character Gabriel de Leon, half human half vampire, and he has this power in order to slay vampires, because this world has been taken over by the vampires for the past few decades, and because of this the human population has been endangered to such an extent that the number of vampires in this world is more than the amount of human beings. It is kind of a situation like in Game of Thrones that we face with the White Walkers and the Night King. The way in which the author has built this world, written the characters and moved the plot is really amazing. Okay, I liked Nevernight as the full-fledged series that was written by this author alone in 2021, and I should say that this delivered everything that I wanted, just like in Nevernight. I cannot say that this first book was as good as Nevernight for me because the sheer volume that it has to present to us in this first book itself, but as a whole I think the author did a really brilliant job. I have a dedicated review for this one also coming out pretty soon in the channel. Again, it is also filmed, I have not edited it. I have not published all those videos yet because I want to put out this wrap up at least within the first week of the month so that it is a bit coherent. So please bear with me and look out for those review videos, because I plan to review books which I've either completely enjoyed or have a lot more to talk about. I have a lot to talk about this one and it will be in a completely spoiler free way. I enjoyed it from the beginning to the end and I can't wait for the second book in the series to be published, and I rated this 4.5 stars. The last physical book is yet another self-help book, and it is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray. I've also been wanting to read this book for the past 2 years. I've been having it on my shelf for nearly 1 year now, and finally I picked it up in January itself. It's a very quick read. At the same time, it delivers a lot. Okay, especially the thing that this book specifically deals with is how we can communicate with a person of the opposite sex, considering that there are only 2 genders in the world. I'm not saying that as a sarcastic thing. Okay, I'm just saying that the author has written this book in such a way that if you want to understand the person of the opposite sex in a better way, you can go forward and read this book and try to implement all the things that the author says here. They are not at all manipulative in their nature. They are just delivered to us in such a way that we can understand the person who's opposite us from a different gender in a proper way and try to make our relationship with them in a stronger way also. It was a nice book, but I don't think that it delivered everything in the proper and clear way that it needs to. Hence I rated it 3.5 stars. Moving on to the audiobooks. The first audiobook which I listened to is How to Live Your Life by Ruskin Bond. In fact, this is the first book which I managed finishing in 2023 because I listened to this exactly after 12 on the 31st of December 2022 and it took me just 20 to 30 minutes to finish it. And I should say that it was a great book to start the year with because it is just like a conversation that you can have with one of your grandparents, because Ruskin Bond is a very old author, right? So because of his experience, he just tells us how we can live life in a very happy and comfortable way. It need not always be stressful and completely jam-packed. You can take your time in doing stuff and it is not necessary to always rush through stuff and just finish everything that begin as quick as you can. The basic concept of life is to just enjoy each and everything that you do and taking your time with it. That's the thing which I got out of this book, and I should say that it was really, really beautiful to read. Just like I described before, it just felt like I had a conversation with one of my grandparents. It was such a soothing experience for me. I'm just a bit worried that I did not read the physical copy of this book because I know that it has some illustrations also. Yet it was a really nice read to start the year with, and I rated it 4 stars. The next audiobook is written by one of my favorite audiobook narrators, and it is Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. In this book, we follow a main character who is a woman over 30 years old, and because of some accident that she had in her past, one of her eyes has been completely damaged, and because of this she cannot look using that eye, and she wears an eye patch all the time, and her other eye alone works. Because of this accident, she also has some scars in her body, and the way in which the author reveals this accident to us is really, really nice. Okay, it's not shown like a huge event, it is just shown as a normal thing that can happen for a person because of some mishap, and how it can affect them in a really, really huge way. The relationship that this main character has with her parents is also really well shown for us here. She has some friends also who come throughout the story along with her in this one, and those friend characters are also really, really nice to read about because they feel like genuinely pure-hearted adults who want something good to happen to their friends despite all things that they've been through. There is also a small chunk of romance that we see in the middle of the book, and that was also dealt really well by the author if you ask me. As a whole, this was a really enjoyable experience for me, and I rated it 4 stars. The next audiobook which I finished is Almond by Sohn Won-Pyung. Now this is a book that is translated from Korean if I am not wrong, and here we follow the life of this very young boy who has some kind of medical condition because of which he cannot emote all the things that he is feeling around him, and there are also some instances during which he does not even feel the impact of some things that are happening in his life. For a person who is like this, his mother and grandmother are the only two people who are supporting him throughout his life. There's a point during which he loses both of them, and how he is going to lead his life after their death is the actual premise of this book, and I should say the author has delivered it in such a beautiful way. Okay, the translation of this book, if I'm not wrong, is also done in a really crisp way that there are not many things which are repeated in the translation that we have to keep in mind in order to understand what this character is going through. It is a very traumatic book to read about, and it is also super sad at instances. So if you're going to read this, just look for the trigger warnings and content warnings, then jump into the book, because it has quite a bit of trigger warnings which need to be looked up before reading the book because it deals with many heavy topics. But all of them were done in a really beautiful way, and I rated it 4 stars. The next one is a memoir, and it is Crying in H-Mart by Michelle Zauner. And there was one issue alone that I faced with this book. It is that the author tells that this is a memoir, but I can say that this book is more about the author's mother compared to herself, and that was one thing which bugged me a lot because I can understand that her mother has had a huge impact on her life because of so many things that she has done for her and to her. At the same time, I was also not able to accept that this is a memoir and it needs to be about the person who's writing it and not about a person who was there in their life. My understanding is that if it is a memoir, it must be about that person. It can talk about the other people in that person's life, but predominantly it must be about the person who's writing the book. This book was not like that for me, except that it was a really, really well written story of her life, and it was also a very honest take on her life also, if you ask me, because the author did not shy away from showing some of the horrible things that have happened for her in her life and to her family in her life. At the same time, she does not hide anything that she did as a wrong thing in the past, which might show her as a bad person to the reader while we are reading the book. Despite it being very honest and transparent in its terms of writing, I don't think that I got the feeling of a memoir because it did not tell much about the author in this one as much as it said about the author's mother. Because of that one reason alone, I rated this book 3 stars, but I would recommend anyone who wants to read it to go forward and give it a try because it's definitely a book that is worth reading. The next one is a YA contemporary book, and it is Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. After reading this book, I want to read so many other books by this author, especially this book called Breasts and Eggs, because I know that it is hugely popular. I don't know what it is about, but I just want to read it. I'm going to buy a physical copy of it and read it, and not just as an audiobook, because I have listened to this one as an audiobook and I totally trust the author with the story that she's going to deliver me. In this book, we basically follow 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, who are being bullied for various reasons in their class, and how this bullying has shaped their life and made them question their own self-esteem is the actual portrayal in this book. And I should say the author has done it in the most blunt, straightforward and on the face way possible. Okay, it is on the face in such a way that you don't feel like you want to keep the book aside, take some time for yourself, think about stuff and just go forward and resume reading the book. It is not like that. You just want to keep on reading and see what is going to happen to these characters and check whether these kind of things have happened for you or for people around you in your life. I'm definitely going to read more books by this author, and if you have read any of the other books written by Mieko Kawakami, please do recommend me them in the comments below if they are translated in English, because I want to read more by this author because I just love the kind of writing and the characterization in this book. My only complaint is that it was a very short book. I expected the story to be a bit longer, and I just wanted to stay in this book for a longer time, even though it was not the most comfortable place to be. So I rated it 4 stars. The last audiobook is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. Now this is the first book inside the Celestial Kingdom duology. It says that it is a duology on Storytel as well as in Goodreads, but I can see a third book that is being added to the series, even though it says that it is a duology. I'm not sure whether there's going to be a third book or not. If you have any more details on it, please do let me know, because I want to complete the series because I enjoyed this first book so much. Okay, this book is actually inspired on the Chinese tale of the moon goddess, and here we follow the daughter of the moon goddess as a main character, who's Xingyan. Now what happens in Xingyan's life is that the moon, which is being taken care of her mother, is actually a place where she has kind of been imprisoned by the Xingyan gets to know about her past a bit more in detail, and she gets away from her kingdom and goes to the Celestial Kingdom because of some things that happen in her life. How she gets herself trained in magic as well as combat, and at the same time improves her talent, is the actual plot of this book. And I should say the author did a great job of telling all those things for us in this first book itself. It is a book which happens over a long period of time, almost 1 or 2 years. There are a few time jumps of several weeks or months inside the book, but I should say that all those transitions were done in a really smooth way by the author. The main character whom we see here is also a person who has a great dignity and self-respect for herself, and she does not let people walk all over her because she knows how worthy she is, not just because she is the daughter of the moon goddess, but she is the person that she is itself. The world building in this one was just top class because I was able to see this world clearly in front of my eyes, and it also giving me a good feel of authenticity. The writing of the author is also very silky in its tone, which just made it very smooth. As a whole, it was a really good book for being first in a series, and it wants me to read the further books in it. So I rated it 4 stars. Finally, talking about the manga that I read, I started a new manga series and read the first 2 volumes of it, and it is Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. I'm reading it from the Manga Plus app, as I said before. You can also read it for free from the app, but you can read each and every chapter only once, so keep that in mind if you're going to read it. In this one, we follow a main character who's a spy, and he just builds up this whole family for himself in order to accomplish this mission. And the 2 people who are added to his family are the woman who's going to marry him, who's a top class assassin, and a small little girl who's adopted by him, who's a telepath. Having said all that, this is also the most jam-packed manga that I've read so far in my life, because it has so much dialogue and so much information that is delivered for us in the first 2 volumes itself. Each volume took me more than 1 hour to finish, which is a longer time for me to read a manga. The first volume felt like it was a bit stretched for me because of the introduction of all the characters, but the second one was really perfect. I rated the first volume 4 stars and the second volume 5 stars, and I'm definitely going to continue on with the series. So yes guys, those are all the 15 books which I read in January, and I should say that I had a beautiful reading month to begin the year with, and I'm hoping to have the same in February and the further months of the year also. Let's just hope and pray that it happens to me and for all of us. Don't forget to comment your January wrap up in the comments below so that I can see what books you have read and get some recommendations from you guys. And if you've read any of the books that I've talked about in this video, do let me know how you felt about them in the comments so that we can start a conversation. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.